Hey everyone, Brian Eckberg here with your daily demo. We're checking out TNA Impact Cross the Line. I'm here with South Peak's Jeff Blair. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here. TNA Wrestling, this one's just for PSP. Take us through this game. What can you do in this game?
Well, TNA Impact Cross the Line is a hard-hitting wrestling game. The game is split into two sides. You've got the single-player campaign and then the exhibition. When you're dealing with the single player, you're actually following the storyline of Suicide, who is a real wrestler in TNA. To give you a quick overview of the storyline, he's working his way up to getting the title belt. He's about to become the grand champion, so to speak, and then a shadowy group comes up to him and tells him he needs to throw the match.
Okay.
And he's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So he goes for it and he wins and he gets the title belt. And as he's leaving the
arena?
The arena, that's the word I'm looking for. He is actually mugged by two masked figures.
Right.
He wakes up 3 weeks later in Tijuana, Mexico. He's been beaten so bad that his face had to be reconstructed.
Good Lord.
And he has amnesia.
Okay.
But then he's told that there's a wrestling competition happening in the town square, that if he were to win it, he could win some pocket cash and get a trip to an American Air Force base and possibly get back home, wherever that may be.
Right.
So from there on out, you're following Suicide to basically both the goals of getting the championship and remembering who he is.
So a pretty standard wrestling story.
Pretty standard wrestling story.
And I'd imagine that it takes you through a lot of different match types.
Right. Whenever you're playing through the single-player campaign, you've got everything from your standard one-on-one wrestling to there's the Ultimate X, which is where you have to actually climb up on pylons to grab an X that's hanging over the center of the ring rather than just pinning your opponent. You've got tag team, which is 2-on-2. You've got a handicap, which is 1 versus 2, and you even have one that's called Full Metal Mayhem.
Right.
That's where you're actually using weapons. So you'll find signs and folding chairs and TVs and stuff hanging around outside of the ring. So you can actually go out, grab them, bring it back in, and just smash it over your opponent's head.
And we should point out that Metal Mayhem is that's
unique to the it's only on the PSP version.
All right. Well, when we talk about wrestling games, people want to know about the roster. We're checking out a match right now between Shark Boy and TNA announcer Mike TNA.
Mike TNA, that's our man.
That's an incredible addition to the roster.
Yep, Mike TNA and Don West are both playable characters
Big
in this
news.
game. Oh, it's amazing. When you get the two of them facing off in a grudge match.
Yes.
Oh.
We did that earlier, Jeff and I did that earlier. We had an epic showdown between the announcers. But it's just a small slice of the roster. It's got a big roster at this game.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of real wrestlers in there. You've got Alex Shelley, Rhino, Robert Roode. Just a whole bunch of real people. And then there's also an expanded list that's all of the characters that were written specifically for Suicide single-player campaign.
Okay.
So you're looking at 50+ wrestlers. It's just massive.
Big roster. So we're looking at the game in the ring. Tell me about the controls. How do you play this game?
Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward control schema. You've got the square is kick, X is punch, triangle is grapple, and this is executed with the circle button. This right here is a submission move. You also use both of the shoulder pads, which is the right shoulder pad is to run, and the left shoulder pad, when you hold that down, it adds more power to your move. So instead of, like if you hold the shoulder pad and hit X, instead of a quick jab, you're actually doing a big overhead smash or something like that. So it leaves you vulnerable for a moment, but then, once you connect, it does a whole lot more damage.
And like the older TNA game, you fill up your impact meter, you get a special move. It brings up in this case, it brings up a button mashing minigame that we saw it on
right.
screen. Right.
Whenever you're doing a submission, what happens is you've got the person in lockup, and then 2 sets of buttons will show up under both their names. Under your name, you've got to hit all 3 of the buttons in order before the other person does. So if you're the one executing the lockup, if you do that 3 to 5 times, in a row without letting them get ahead of you, you would do a whole lot of damage on one focus point. Whereas if you've been put in lockup, the first time you get through a set of 3 before the other person, you get out of it.
Nice. Well, actually, maybe we scroll through the roster a little bit so people can see some of the wrestlers in here. There's Mike today, Brother Devon, of course. Chris Sabin, named after a video game character, he told me. Actually, I interviewed him a few years ago. Sabin is a character in Final Fantasy. That's how he got his last name.
I did not know that.
That's a little bit of
That's
trivia
actually
for you.
awesome.
Scott Steiner, big roster. So yeah, a lot of guys that TNA fans will recognize in here.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
All right, so final question is, when is TNA coming out?
TNA is coming out in June, so be prepared for that.
Absolutely. Jeff, thank you for being here. Appreciate that. TNA Impact Cross the Line coming for the PlayStation Portable very soon.